Hi everybody, welcome to the Thumb. So today I'm gonna see about repairing this motor. Normally I wouldn't mess with these too much just because it's a small motor, but this is a very good high quality motor and it's not that old. The story behind it is it's on a bulk tank washer. If you're a dairy farmer, you know what that is. If you're not a dairy farmer, ask a dairy farmer. No, but really it's dairy farmers milk their cows. The milk goes into a bulk tank, they call it. And every day or two, the milkman comes and picks up the milk, turns on the tank washer, washes everything so it's clean for the next milking. But the story is that this the seal went bad on the pump itself, which would be kind of right in this area, and it was blasting water right into the motor, which in some cases wouldn't be that bad, but the cleaning solutions, there's chlorines and acids and everything so anything with iron in it is pretty well toast. And it probably cooked the grease right out of the bearings. So I'm hoping that's all that's wrong, is that maybe the bearings are bad. It's thermally protected, so that usually saves the motor if it's not really too bad. But anyway, so first thing I'm going to do is tear it apart and just see what it looks like inside before I get too carried away, which isn't bad. I gotta take this fan cover off. There's a few, 10mm wrench to take the cover, the 3 bolts off the cover. And then I gotta take the fan off, pull the bolts that tie it all together, and then just take it apart and see if the bearings are bad or if there's other things wrong with it. If there's other things wrong with it, I'll probably just put a new motor on, but in this case, it's an expensive enough motor, it's worth taking a look at. So I'm probably not going to show you everything, but I'll probably turn the camera back on for some key points. Okay, so I took the fan cover off, took the fan off. I don't know why, but this fan has a crack in it, and yeah, it just spins on there. Yeah, I really don't know what would have caused that. And it's, like I said, it's not that old of a motor. I know he just changed the seal on it, a week or two ago, and maybe he dropped it or something and that bent that, but who knows? Yeah, now, one thing I usually do is, before I take the covers off the ends or the end plates, put a few marks on there, and that way you know where it goes back together, clocking it on there. Okay, that's it for all the bolts. Yeah, basically these bolts, there's 4 of them, ties the 2 end caps together, kind of squishes everything in, and now it's ready to come apart. This end usually comes off pretty easy, usually. And this time it's not. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So you have to kind of be careful because there's a couple of wires in there that go on this start switch, which when the motor's sitting there doing nothing, this start switch, it's just a couple of points. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it when it's sitting there not running, these points are together and creating a circuit for the start components, which I guess this is one of the start components, but then the other thing is the capacitor, which is kind of a jump starter, you might say. Kind of gets the thing rolling, and then once everything gets to rolling, well, then this centrifugal switch, it's called, clicks out or clicks back. The centrifugal force lets this little plate go back, which then the points aren't touching anymore. So if those, yeah, see, this bearing is really good. But you can see that the grease is kind of cooked out of it. So I'll probably replace that, or I am going to replace that one too. But this will be the big deciding factor, is whether this end is good or not. Because if it's not, I'll just put a new motor on it. The first thing you do on a motor is just see if it smells, you know. There's kind of a distinct smell to a motor that's burnt up. It's like just a burnt electrical smell. Yeah, that bearing's fine, but this bearing's tight. That's what I was hoping to see. My biggest fear was that maybe all this would be rusty and jammed in there, but looks pretty good. Yeah, and like I said, you know, you look at these windings, they're not all cooked and burnt and stinky. Because if you let the smoke, you know, they put smoke in these at the factory, and if you let that smoke out, the only way to do it is to send it back to the factory, and that's very expensive. And so yeah, if you let that smoke out, you might as well just throw it in the trash and get a new motor. Yeah, I think this will be a pretty cheap fix. Like I said, this bearing on the shaft end it's just seized up, and that's why it wouldn't start. So trying to decide how I want to do this. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get a different wrench to there's a couple of little bolts that hold like a bearing keeper in there, so I'm going to get another wrench to take that out. Okay, so I took this end cover off. Yeah, basically pulled the outside of the bearing off. You know, or the outside of the bearing was inside of this. And yeah, there's like dried up grease all over everything. So yeah, I know that grease got cooked out of that, probably from the hot water blowing in it. I don't think the motor itself got all that hot, but just, yeah, the hot water probably didn't do it any good. So anyway, yeah, this was that bearing keeper. Basically, it's just a little lever that kind of holds the bearing into this plate. Yeah, it just has a slotted hole on one side and a hole on the other. Yeah, you just got to kind of flip it out of the way. So then I kind of cleaned the shaft up. It's a stainless steel shaft, so this part should go pretty good. Yeah, it's coming right out. Okay, so that bearing's off. And I'll flip it over. Just trying to not hurt it any. Kind of clean the shaft up on this end. It's kind of weird because the grease definitely boiled out of this end, which is kind of odd. Okay, both bearings are off. I'll get set up and get ready to put the new bearings on. Okay, so this is the old bearing. When you're putting a new bearing on, you don't want to pound on the outside of the bearing. You want to pound right on this inside race. So I found a piece of pipe that I can, slip over the shaft and pound right on the inner race. That way it won't damage the cage, I guess you call it. Luckily this is all going pretty easy. Yeah, you heard the difference in tone when I bottomed out on that. Oh shoot, I never got a pipe for the other end. Okay, I got to get a pipe for the other end now. Okay, this one's going to be a little trickier, a little more tricky, however you say that. Mainly because there's, instead of being like a shoulder on the shaft for it to bottom out, there's only just a snap ring, so get too carried away, it might damage that snap ring. Yeah, if I had a press or something, you could always use a press, but it's not like they go on real hard. Okay, I'm going to leave her at that. Now, I guess I could always pop this back on there. Well, it's convenient. There we go. That's better. Okay, that's back on. Well, there. So the new bearings are basically installed. Now I just got to put everything back together. So I'm just going to do everything in reverse. See, there's my 3 marks I made. There's my 3 marks for this one, so I know I'm at the right end. I don't make the marks the same. It's like either 3 and 2 or 2 and 1 or whatever. I'm just going to kind of tap this together. My marks aren't lined up exactly. Oh, dang it. Guess I won't try to get it perfect. Now this end's usually a little trickier because it's, I guess I never really did look at the points. Yeah, you want to look at the points on that switch too, just to because you can replace that switch. Usually if a motor doesn't start, it's usually the start switch. Sometimes it's the capacitor, but in this case, it, okay, so my marks are lined up, and then there's a wire right here. Can't see it probably. This wire here is a little, these wires aren't real long, but if they were any longer, then they'd pose a threat to get caught and stuff. And that's happened before. Oh, come on. Maybe I should have done this one first. There. So then when you shove it in, you got to kind of make sure that the wires are going back where they belong. Okay. So I got it close. I'm going to put a couple of these bolts in. I don't know if these really matter, but there's little washers. Probably don't do much, but they were there, so. That's sometimes tricky too, getting those to line up with the other end. Just going to kind of snug these up just a little. Okay, that was just to kind of set the bearing in to make sure everything's kind of in place. Okay, so I got it basically together, but I'm going to dig through my junk pile and see if I can find a different fan for that. Okay, found a new fan. Well, not a new fan, but a fan that's intact. For the amount of time this thing runs, it probably could run without a fan just because it's only running for, I think the longest wash, it's probably running for like, I don't know, 5 minutes maybe at a time. So yeah, wouldn't be the end of the world if there wasn't a fan on it, but since I had one, why not? So I guess all I got to do now is finish putting her together and put some juice to it, see if it works. Okay, so I got her wired in. This is my I guess if you're like a bona fide electrician, maybe you might want to fast forward a little bit, get through this, but if you're a good old self-taught electrician guy like me. But yeah, I just got it's just a cut off from an old extension cord going to this, but then this is, it's actually a 120 volt plug adapter going to my welder plug. So yes, runs on 220 or 230. So I guess if you're in Canada, it's 220. In America, it's 230. So anyway, so now I got to take it over to the welder plug and try her out. Okay, so I make sure my ground's hooked up. So I put this piece of tape on there just so you can actually see the shaft spinning when it turns on. So here goes nothing. Okay, worked once. Well, there we go. Success. Okay, just a little tidbit. I don't want to set up any electricians for an argument. I normally don't do this. If this wasn't such a new motor and a good quality stainless steel bodied motor, I probably wouldn't have done it. Usually, even a year or two old in the environment that this is in, usually a motor is like all rusted up and it isn't going to come apart. And yeah, it's hardly worth the hassle. So if an electrician tells you that, or a repair guy or your service guy, whatever, tells you that I got to put a new motor on, don't argue with him, because he's saving you some money. You know, most of this stuff, especially in dairy equipment, it runs a lot. You get a lot of hours on it for the amount of money that you have into your dairy equipment. And if you compared that to your combines or your corn planters or whatever, for the amount of hours you're putting on it, it's beans compared to what you're spending and your depreciation on your other equipment. So, but yeah, but everybody likes to save money when they can. So, and like I said, I normally wouldn't have done this. I do have a new motor sitting on the shelf, and actually I ended up costing myself some money because I could have sold the new motor. But keeping a customer happy is pretty important too. And yeah, if I can save him $500, I'll do it. But sometimes it's not worth it. But anyway, so I might show me putting this on and running it on the tank, but I probably won't because I don't like to make videos when there's other people around. But anyway, if not, thanks for watching and take her easy.